Hi, we're back. Hi, ladies.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to
Sorry, now you know what it's like to be in the classroom with me.
Welcome to Tribe TV. Yeah, we should be a choir
that all sings the different parts.
Yeah, I like that. If people could bear my singing. Okay, so just to recap, we are on letter E of B.R.E.A.T.H.E, which is one of the workshops we provide to districts. And we, just to remind you, we went through B was everybody?
Belonging.
Right? And R was?
Reflecting on
our purpose. And today we are going to focus on E, which is engaging our self-compassion. I did suggest we do this from the bathtub with a glass of wine, giving ourselves self-compassion. But I got nixed on that thought. Nobody wanted to picture it.
That's how Stephen Colbert did his broadcast in the bathtub. He did.
Maybe that's something we have to look forward to on another day.
Okay, so let's talk about us. Self-compassion, real quickly, is sometimes perceived as soft, weak. You're taking care of yourself. You've got you got to get moving. You got to do stuff for the family. Why take time for you? It could be seen as narcissistic, people that work out a lot, like I don't. And really, if you are not self-compassionate and taking care of the number one, you're going to be treading water. And how are you going to take care of the team, right? What do they say on the airplane? When the mask drops, put it on yourself first and then take care of your kid. So actually being self-compassionate is providing and boosting your physical and mental health, right? So we want to focus today. We're going to go through a few exercises that are on our free ebook that you can get on our website, thrivinguniversity.com/resources. So check that out, print it out, and do the resources. So we're going to dive in. You guys want to dive in right now?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the idea of that self-compassion is kind of seen sometimes as soft or weak even. And I'll be quite honest, I feel like I was slow to come to the self-compassion game because I almost in some ways also thought it was selfish, right? Like I think a lot of us who go into helping fields like educators, we're often so other oriented, right? We're always focused on what can I do for other people or how can I serve them well or that other people have needs. And so we're just kind of innately predisposed to kind of be other oriented and somehow giving something towards ourselves seems almost selfish, or at least it did for me. I'll use I statements.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And you know, I think one of the nicest or sweetest or best definitions of self-compassion is just talking to yourself or treating yourself the same way you would talk or treat someone you really care about, right? If you think of a trusted friend or somebody that you really love, you would never say some of the things we say to them that we say to ourselves. For example, you know, the chatter in my mind is sometimes, man, like, oh, why can't you get this right? Like, as a parent, what you suck, right? Like, or as a teacher, like everybody else seems to be doing better or keeping up with things or making more beautiful lesson plans. And what's wrong with you? And if I think about that about a friend, I would never be like, oh you do suck, right? You would just never say that to somebody in a real moment of need. And so I like to think of self-compassion. We think of it as self-pity, or it's actually quite the opposite. It's where self-pity can kind of be isolationary, right? Like take for instance, like I'm a bad parent. I lost it on my kid, right? Instead of going into that spot where it says, I'm a bad parent, I'm the only one who feels this way, something's wrong with me, which can be very self-isolating, self-compassion kind of pivots and says, no, guess what? Anyone who has ever been a parent before has felt like they're lacking, right? Or has felt somehow that, or question, am I doing this right? Because it's hard to be a parent, right? It's hard to be a teacher. It's hard to just be a human. It's hard to
be a sister, a mother, like
exactly, father, mother, whatever your role is, right? And so I love that self-compassion, now that I understand, is quite different than self-pity. It's actually before it drives you away from people, it drives you towards connection, toward humanity, right? I think the other big misconception is that somehow it's weak, right? Like we're weak if we need to somehow give love or care to ourselves. And actually what we do, just if you look at it from a neuroscience perspective, when we are really self-critical to ourselves, towards ourselves, we are in a stress reaction, right? So we're triggering, and I know a lot of us in Thrive Tribe know about the flip your lid. Thank you, Dr. Dan Siegel, right? So we're stressed out. We're in a fight, flight, or freeze. So we're like, and so we're often avoiding the very thing we need to do. Like if we're saying, oh, we want to take care of our health better, and but if we're telling them, you need to diet, or what's wrong with you? Then we're setting ourselves into a stress state, and we're not actually progressing on the goals we want anyway. So when we're self-compassionate, we're in a better starting posture. So it actually makes us more effective, right? So just some things. Thank you, Janine, as you were thinking about that. Things that I've had to shift in my head as I've learning. I'm a work in hashtag work in progress.
Hashtag everybody work in progress.
Because man, my inner talk cannot always be very kind.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You talk about inner talk, and I think about what I say to myself when I'm upset with myself. And I don't even just say it in my head. I actually say it out loud because I like that dramatic effect, you know? So the phrase that I use is, Joelle, you're an idiot. And actually it's preceded by a very colorful adjective that I will not say on this video because children might be watching. So it's like, Joelle, you're a colorful adjective, idiot. And I'm better. I don't say it as often, but when I think about that, I wouldn't say that to another human being. And yet that's what I say to myself. And I'm listening. That's the problem. Right. So just like you said, going into that state where we're not able to really help anyone else when we're in that state of I'm an idiot. Kristen Neff, who we love in the Thrive Tribe, she is kind of the guru and research on self-compassion. She talks about 3 components of self-compassion. And she talks about first, you know, you have to be mindful. You have to be paying attention that you're not being self-compassionate. You have to be paying attention that when you do engage in saying, I'm an idiot, that you can not judge it, but then just react by giving yourself some grace. So kind of the phrase that I say to myself after, Joelle, you're an idiot, is, Joelle, give yourself some grace. That's my comeback, right? So first, being mindful. And the second element is kind of touching on what you mentioned already, Jess, and that is recognizing the shared humanity. That this sounds weird, but to like just say, you know, everybody suffers. Suffering is part of life. And that might seem cold or weird to say, but the truth is, when we are feeling badly, the one thing that can make us feel worse is feeling like we are the only ones who feel that way. Mm-hmm. And so the shared humanity of, you know, other people have felt this way. Other people have felt like a bad parent, like you were saying, or a bad wife or bad friend or whatever, helps you see that you do have that connection. And then the third and final thing is just really simple, but often the hardest thing. And that is just being kind to yourself. So treating yourself as you would a friend, saying to yourself, you know, Joelle, give yourself some grace. You did screw up here, but you know what? You're going to make it right. You need to go talk to that person or whatever it is. But just saying something to be kind to yourself. And the other thing, as I'm doing it right now, is she talks about the importance of touch. As mammals, we like touch. And right now we can't touch anyone else. So I just, sorry, my just went to all different place.
A lot of interpretation there.
Yeah. What you can do is just self-soothe. So even like, I find that I actually hold my own hand a lot. So I must be really into self-soothing, right?
Yeah, buddy.
Hi, Addie. Right. And then also just, you know, putting your hand to your heart. Those are just other ways that you can kind of self-soothe. So that's throwing those 3 things out there, 3 elements of self-compassion.
Awesome. You want me to talk? Okay, let's talk about a letter of compassion. I just want to welcome our guest today. We have
we have a 4th Thrive Triber.
I love it. Addie, we're gonna talk about how to do a letter of self-compassion, writing a letter to yourself. So this requires maybe thinking of something that you feel a little insecure about. Probably you don't, because you're amazing, but maybe, you know, you did the B.R.E.A.T.H.E test and you just didn't get what you didn't really do the reading like you thought you should, or maybe there's something you're ashamed about. You kind of took your brother's Minecraft tool or something. So
But there is something new on Netflix. So, Minecraft story mode.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna check that out. We're playing. I'm in the office right now because the kids are playing Minecraft out there right now.
Cool. I love it.
I love it.
So we're gonna think of something that we're gonna identify, whatever that is, and then what I want you to do is think about how that makes you feel. How do you feel when you think about that scenario and you feel a little, maybe ashamed sounds like a hard word, but just insecure about something a little bit, right? Okay, that's step 2. And then step 3, I want you to think about your best friend or someone like your mom who loves you unconditionally. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, she still loves you to the bitter end, okay? So those are the 3 things. And then what we're going to do is we're going to write a letter to ourselves about that incident. I do it a little differently, ladies, so just bear with me. But when you do the ebook, it'll be, I want you to write that letter, writing down what your mom would say to you, or your best friend, or anyone, your auntie who loves you so much unconditionally. That means, you know what unconditionally means? No matter what, you don't have to, no matter what you do, no matter what, I will love you, okay? And when you write that letter from, let's say, your mom, it's going to say, Dear Addie, and you're going to write down what your mom would tell you about that incident. Like if you had told her, Mom, I feel I'm really bummed out because I did X, I took Oren's game and I shouldn't have. What would your mom say to you?
What would I say?
I'm trying to forget it.
Yeah,
She
maybe
would probably give you a lot of kind words, and she would
that's okay.
help you process it and help you feel okay with it. So when we write those letters of self-compassion, we want to do them not from the perspective of what our negative DJ is telling us all the time, but what would somebody tell us who loves us and nurtures and cares for us? What advice would they give us? And then you're going to give that to yourself in the form of a letter. And you always sign off with, I love you.
That's nice, huh?
Nice.
Okay.
You know what I've
Nice.
seen too is so powerful when we've done this in workshops. When people can actually read their letter aloud to someone, they sometimes get emotional as they're writing the letter, but you can still somehow have a little distance. But when you read that letter out loud to yourself, and so at home, if you don't read it to another person, but just read it out loud, it can really hit home.
And then what we like to do is take that letter, Addie, you could put it in your dresser, you could put it under your pillow, you could put it in your favorite book. And then when you feel that those negative voices coming back and you're kind of beating yourself up, you can take that letter out again and read it and feel good about yourself.
Oh, nice little reminder that you have kind of in your keepsake box. Yeah.
Love it. Well, ladies.
I love having a special guest today.
Thank you. Thanks for letting her join. Special guest is ready to go. The way she engaged in self-compassion is giving herself some reading. So she's eager to go get some reading done.
She's got the AR thing to do.
Yes.
All right. Thrive Tribers.
Peace out, everybody.
Hope you have a great day.
Hope you have a great day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.